I want to make one more video on this. This is the last like PTR level video before the season starts on this topic. And then stay tuned tomorrow for the end of season disband review. It's going to be a banger. But yeah, this is now like the third time they've posted a major list, like a long list of changes to dungeons. And at this point, if you're still like, oh, I don't know if this season's going to be, one way or the other. I mean, I don't like, can we, didn't mean to click that. Can we draw any more conclusions from this, right? Like this is literally another laundry list of changes, all nerfs, right? I don't think there's anything in here that is not a nerf. So this is multiple videos. Oh, look at they nerfed this. Look at they nerfed this. Look at they nerfed this. It's like, what are their aims here? I don't know. I really don't. And it's to the point where it makes me wonder how easy keys actually are going to be. So it may not be anything. It may mean nothing. This may not mean anything and the keys may still be extremely hard. But yeah, I think we're getting to the point now where you have to wonder. I don't know. Let's take a look at this actual stuff. Champions in the halls might have had their abilities redistributed. Okay, so they're not just like 50% health nerfs or something like that, right? Even though that did happen a couple weeks ago. They're like unique changes like this. So what this probably means is it's in response to how people used to try to skip certain mini bosses. So if you're not aware in this area, you can actually it's based on when you run into a certain threshold. The mob who hits last is the one that you fight. Okay, it's like they're fighting. They're like a drawn out little battle. And then the other one taps out basically as you cross the threshold, and the winner is the guy you fight. So you could easily actually skip one because it was just harder than the other one. And people would do this all the time back in the day. They're probably going to make that pointless. Maybe they're going to make them all do the same abilities. Who knows? I don't know what this means, but it sounds like that's what they would do. You know what I mean? Another big change to that area. Cult of Rock's encounter now starts at 50 energy. Probably what that means is you now have to deal with stacking of the adds sooner. So I guess not necessarily a nerf in any way, just kind of changing the fight. And will that matter? Probably not. I don't know. I guess it may affect your burst a little bit or something. I don't know how long it takes him to get to 100 energy. And I'm not even sure that 100 energy is when he does the mechanic that spawns the adds. Anyway, Zav the Unfallen Seismic's leap damage reduced by 20% and no longer affects players being pulled back onto the platform. So this is a good thing because sometimes you would have this unfair situation where you would come back and immediately be in severe danger. But yeah, 20% flat reduction to something on the fight, right? Like that fight was actually already ridiculously easy. I was shocked at how easy that fight was compared to how it used to be, at least from the tank roll and like survival, the way it looked. So anyway, we have Darkflame Cleft, which I still think is going to be the dungeon with the hardest slew of bosses. Like if you add up all the bosses in every dungeon, I think Darkflame Cleft still has the hardest ones, the most complicated and mechanically, intense ones. But anyway, Blaziken no longer casts Blazing Storm immediately after extinguishing Gust if there is no player in melee range. I don't understand that change. I don't know what that means. I assume what that means is, extinguishing Gust is something that's forcing you to move. And then I guess if you all accidentally move too far away, he's going to cast something new called Blazing Storm, which might be like a fail check. I don't know. Priory of the Sacred Flame. And this one was the one that I'm the most worried about. I think this is probably going to be the hardest dungeon. And we again have major changes. Last time we looked at this, major changes to this dungeon. Major changes to this dungeon. Here's more. Removed one Risen Mage and one Devout Priest from the Inner Cathedral. I thought they already did that. Like last time we talked about them taking a mage out and putting a regular melee mob in, right? So now what are we talking about? What, there's like no mages, no casters at all in there? I don't know. It was a really hard place to multi-pull, but you pull like 5 casters in 2 packs, and it didn't seem like that was going to be tenable. Do they exist anymore? I don't even know. Lightspawn's Purification cast time increased to 2 seconds, was 1. So major nerf to that, right? Even if you don't kick these spells. I had somebody comment this a while ago when we were talking about them changing a spell from 2 to 3 second cast time. And you're like, that doesn't change anything. You're still going to kick it early in the cast. Okay, that's an error. I mean, like, regardless, I'm not going to argue that here today. The point is, even if you fail to kick it, it's still a gigantic nerf because he's only going to cast it 50% as often. You know what I mean? Like that's, or 100% less often, I guess is how you would put that, right? So it's like, this is a huge change. This is making it, yeah, don't kick the second they cast the spell, I guess. Yeah, it's a good thing. This is definitely a good thing. And then also bursts of light, cast time 5 seconds. I don't know what that one is, to be honest, but those mobs are a huge pain. They're the peskiest mobs, maybe even in the whole game, because they heal up. So we'll see how it goes. That mob is going to be a pain in the ass. You're probably going to see a lot of people trying to skip that mob. Devoted Priest's Holy Smite damage reduced by 16%. So that's just a rotational cast. And then Guard Captain Suleiman, that's a mini boss. 25% health reduction on top of the flat 10% everything in the game got last 2 weeks ago, whenever that was. Now this is a boss, Baron Braunpike. Hammer of Purity damage reduced by 16%. Sacrificial Flame impact radius now matches the Sacrificial Pyre area. Don't fully understand that one. Sacrificial Pyre group damage reduced by 18%. So that's the thing that you soak, I believe. And that means that you are taking way less damage each time you soak. It was very, very easy. That's not the mechanic. I'm making a fool of myself, but I think that's the mechanic. It was very, very easy for a Blood Death Knight to get all of them. You just AMS it and just keep running into it. You can actually also AMS and Death's Advance, and you just stand there and all 3 charges go away. Because it's like the thing in, it used to be in one of the Tazavesh dungeons, where you would have to run into it and it would do a pulse of AoE damage. But it would put, the way it works now is it puts a stacking debuff on you. Doesn't do that if you AMS. And it knocks you back, so you can just literally go in with AMS and just stand there. Anyway, Burning Light periodic damage reduced by 80%. That's 80. And cast time while empowered is increased to 2 seconds. Was 1.5. So I'm not really sure. It says increased. So that means like, yeah, it used to be faster, I guess. And now it's slower, meaning that like phase is not as bad or whatever. So yeah, cool. Operation Floodgate, another ridiculous list of changes, which is just not needed. This dungeon was easily the easiest of all of them. Like I think Theater is probably going to be the easiest one, but this dungeon you would expect to be a lot harder than it was, and it was kind of shockingly easy. We got another huge list here. So we got Mythic timers increased by 1 minute, which is, I don't think they changed the timer at all since it came out for testing. Weapon stockpiles are now displayed on the map, which is really helpful, because there's a lot you have to go through. I think it's 4, maybe 5. I think it's 5 locations and click a thing, and then that progresses to the boss. Basically, you have to do that in order to do that. And a lot of people are just clueless. Like we go in there on the PTR, and people were like, "Not that way," and it's like, "What? No, you have to click this." And then you would kill all the trash, and people just wouldn't click it. So you'd be like, you have to go backwards and click it as a tank. Anyway, the bomb pile at the entrance to the dam service tunnel is now displayed on the map when active. I think what that means is you have to click that too, and it's going to show up on the map. I don't know why you would need that. I'm not sure what that means. Trash adjusted the composition of the patrols inside the dam service tunnel to reduce difficulty. Literally spelling it out for you. Hey, you guys suck at this trash. How about we just take some of the mobs out for you? You know what I mean? Adjusted the composition of some packs near Big Mama to reduce difficulty. That's crazy. I mean, that's really crazy. I can't wait to see what this looks like, because this dungeon was actually, I felt like it was probably going to be the new Dawnbreaker. I had a very interesting route, and every time I did it, even on the PTR, people were like, this tank, why is he going that way? So I knew it was going to be one of those things. And a lot of it was because of what I perceived to be trash that was difficult around the, not necessarily the second area, but yeah, Big Mama, definitely. So we'll see. I don't know. It's cool that they're doing the stuff like this. And the fact that they would say it out loud is very interesting. Bubbles backwash duration reduced to 6 seconds, was 10. I think that's like a dot that goes on players. Bubbles bubble damage reduced by 30%. So you fight this like weird, I don't even know what the hell this thing is. It looks like a weird murloc. It's like a fish creature, and you fight it, and it's in a very, very tight area, and it puts these little bubbles on the ground. It gets to the point where you're pretty crowded here. So what I've been doing as a Death Knight was soaking them, but they hit hard. So it's like Vamp Blood, AMS, easy mode, don't take it otherwise. You know what I mean? But now 30% reduction. So I think you do want to soak them, honestly, because it gets really hard to fight. And then we have Dark Fuse Blood Warper's Warp Blood damage has been reduced. Okay. Dark Fuse Jumpstarter's battery discharge damage reduced by 10%. Not sure the names of these things. Loader Bot's Wind Up cooldown increased. Mechanodrome Sniper. This was a big one. People are going to freak out about this mob because it's another one of these guys that cast shoot. You know what I mean? Like we saw in Brackenhide and all these dungeons over the years, where it's just like a ranged auto attack that just goes on a random player. So those are nerfs to that. Both, I think Trick Shot was kickable. Yeah, because that's a cast time that's increased. The other one's just damage reduced. So yeah, lots of damage from those mob types. Really the only ones that are probably that dangerous to the group, and both nerfed. Shredinator 3000s, Shred Nation, Saw Blade damage reduced by 30%. So this one's you're gonna see a lot of confused people on this. It basically throws a saw underneath you. Now they had changed it multiple times throughout the course of the PTR, but it eventually lands in a spot where he casts a spell. When the spell is cast, he puts a blade underneath you. Then you're meant to move from it. One of the changes they made a while ago was that it took a while. Like it didn't instantly tick, like it was originally instantly ticking. Another change they made was originally they were like permanent, like they just stayed forever. Now only one can be up at a time, and they didn't tick instantly. And if you're still standing at it, you got the trifecta now, so it doesn't even do as much damage now. So you should not die to this. It's still going to cause chaos. People are going to be moving all over the place, but it's way, 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 way easier than it was. Venture Company Divers Sephorium charge visuals have been updated. I believe that's the bomb that we kept getting knocked in the air with, so we'll see what they do. And then the Electrician's health reduced by 20%, and the Lightning Bolt reduced. This was a big one. This seemed like the hardest hitting spell in the dungeon. Again, interruptible, yes, but you're going to see some go through. We talked about this actually in our first video on the PTR about how I felt like the only hard part in this dungeon was this very binary, did we kick a spell? Like that's the first time I ever did the dungeon, and I still stand by probably about 90% of what I said in that video. It was like, this dungeon's a joke. Like it was like made by somebody who never did Mythic Plus before. It felt like a classic dungeon where it's like, oh, there's a spell. It's called Frostbolt. If you get hit by it, you take some damage. Like that was the difficulty. You know what I mean? And it's still like that. And it's like, okay, the only hard part is just kick the fucking spells. Like I don't know. It's really weird. But that mob type was the main thing that we were talking about in that area. Anyway, Demolition Duo. Big Bada Boom cooldown increased. I think that's them spawning the bombs, I believe. If so, then that's good, because that fight did feel like a little bit hectic, constantly doing the bombs. Deflagration initial damage reduced, and deflagration damage over time reduced. So this was a debuff that goes on in the group. You need to heal this up. I think you can dispel it as well. You're meant to dispel it. And when it's dispelled or removed or whatever, it hits bombs and gets rid of the bombs. The goal of the fight is to clear all the bombs the boss puts down. But when I did it, I actually did it with Sniffle, a long-time guildie and viewer of the channel now. He had a lot of trouble healing this, and he said this felt really overtuned. It was basically like we had to dispel the person instantly because the damage over time effect was just too high to let it tick more than once. And that meant we didn't have the bombs. So basically you were playing it in a way where you would expect a bomb to go off, and you were going to heal through that easier than the one person with the actual debuff. So that was a long time coming, but that's a pretty big nerf to it. And then Wallop now only affects the primary target, which I was unaware of. Apparently, if that's a tank mechanic, by the way, if the tank mechanic, I guess, if you were near another player, it would wallop them too. So yeah, that's the Papow fight. So yeah, stay tuned. There's gonna be a lot of Papowing this season. Swampface, that's the third boss. Skewering roots now spawn slightly farther away from players. I don't know what that means. Is that that must be the water thingy that comes out? I don't know. That fight's going to be chaos for a lot of people. You get rooted. You get kind of tethered to another player. I thought that would be this, but I don't know what that means by slightly farther away. But yeah, you get tethered to another human being in the group, maybe a bot, and you can't break, there's no way to break it. You're stuck to them. And if you run the wrong way, then it pulls the other person with you. And so there's a lot of mechanics to move out of. It's like the whole mechanical difficulty of the fight is moving out of mechanics, and it's moving out when you're tied to another person. Luckily, as the tank, you don't get picked. As long as there's 5 people alive, the 5th player, odd man out, is the tank. Makes it extremely easy fight for a tank. And then as soon as one DPS dies, all of a sudden it's chaos. And then anyway, rushing tide damage increased by 25%. I would assume the water thing I just described, that's rushing tide. But I don't know what skewering roots are. I don't know. Anyway, turbocharged damage reduced by 10% on Gizo Gigazap. That's the last boss. Turbocharge, I think, was just like the damage that goes out throughout the fight. And then Giga Zap, duration reduced to 6 seconds, was 8 seconds. Not really sure. That's another very, very easy fight for a Blood Death Knight, so I didn't learn a ton about what's going on in that fight. But yeah, we see another ridiculous list. So tell me, does anybody still concerned? Is anybody still worried about the difficulty of this season? Like, I think all signs point to they're trying to make keys way, way, way easier than ever before. Or maybe not ever before, but like way easier than season 1. They're actually doing interviews saying that. Like, hey, we're making the game like not just for the top level players. Like, they're actually saying these things because people keep bringing this up. Like, why is the game only tuned around players who care about being good at it? That's basically what people are saying. And Ian's like, hey, we hear you. We want you to be able to suck and still succeed. So you got your wish. I mean, we'll see. I could be way off on this. Stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of streams coming up, and make sure you guys check out the seasonal disband review video coming tomorrow. It's going to be a good one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.